we going to get into today? Well, today we are going to be talking about mashing in. What is it? How do we do it? All right, but first things first, welcome to Distillers Corner. This is where we pick out small parts of this hobby and check them out, okay? So let's get started. All right, so mashing in is the topic, okay? So what is mashing in? Well, the long and the short answer is it's a process that we use to extract the starches and the enzymes out of a seed and convert them into sugars. And that's what, of course, that's what we need. All right. So how do we do that? Well, first, as we talked before, you got to prepare your seed. Like the corn, we got to grind it, and the barley and such like that, we have to mill it and crack it open so that we can get water into that seed. All right. So let's go with corn first. The first thing we got to do with corn so that we can use it, we need to, like I said, we got to grind it. That exposes the inside part of the seed. And then what we got to do is we got to cook it or gelatinize it, hydrogenate it, whatever you want to call it. That's what we'll have to do next. Some people will take their corn and put it in a pot. And I've seen where they make contraptions where it's constantly stirring and they just cook it that way. Okay, that's one way to do it. And then, but you got to be really careful because if you burn it on the bottom of that pot, you can't get that taste out of it. So it would actually pretty much ruin it. All right. So then a lot of people, what they do is they'll just take the corn, stir it into boiling water, and then just let it sit there and steep. That's particularly the way I do it. I don't think there's no right or wrong. It's just the way I do it. As far as the grains, that's the corn. As far as the grains, we need to steep at it, say 152 degrees Fahrenheit to extract them starches and for the enzymes to start converting those starches over into sugars. And that's basically all we're doing is we're trying to get those starches converted over to sugars that we need. And we'll talk about a little bit about that in a minute. All right, so let's talk about enzymes right now. Because that is actually something that's very fascinating, is enzymes. Okay, you take a seed, and I'm going to use barley for example. Once it starts to dry out, once it grows, it starts to dry out, it will store all of its food as a starch within that seed, okay? And, for the plant to grow, but the plant can't use starch to grow. It needs sugar to grow. So, let me continue on. So, how does that work? Well, what happens, like I said, when the seed dries out, it stores its food. And then in nature, the seed, once it gets to so much moisture inside the seed and it gets enough warmth in the seed, like in the springtime, it will start to grow. All right. Well, let me back up. I messed up. It will start producing an enzyme within the seed to change that starch over into sugars. And then it needs that sugar to grow. All right, so it's a pretty amazing how that works, right? So how do we use it? All right, well, there's people out there called maltsters, and they will take the seeds, let's say barley, and they will get it with a certain amount of water and a certain amount of heat, and they got a process they do it. They're pretty good at their job. And once that seed starts to grow, they'll dry it out. They'll dry it and then it stops. It'll put a little sprout out and then they dry it and it stops. So, but once the enzyme is made inside that seed, right? From the heat and the warmth and all the once they dry, since it's made, it don't go away. So what do you have? You have malted barley. Now, you have malted barley, like I said. All right. Now that just brings another term out, and by that barley, the amount of enzyme it has is called its diacetic power. For example, corn, you can malt corn, but the amount of enzyme that's in that corn is very low. It produces enough, just basically enough to convert its own self. Now barley, on the other hand, it has a lot more than it needs. So what it will do, it will convert anything that's around it, right? So if you have malted barley and you have corn in the same area, the enzymes in the barley will help convert the starches in that corn over into sugars too. And that's what we use a lot of, right? All right, woo! So it's a fun, it's a lot of science, and that's what's so cool. Temperatures. All right, now temperatures is very, very important. All right. The main enzymes that we work with is beta enzyme and alpha enzyme, and there is others, but that's the main ones we deal with. Now, beta enzyme, it loves it between 131 degrees Fahrenheit and 156 degrees Fahrenheit. That's where it likes it the best. The alpha likes 149 to 162. Okay, so a great compromise that we can use is 152 degrees. So if you have in your mash tun or however you're making your mash, 152 degrees is a great temperature. But don't run over too hot of the 162, 165 or something like, because you can denature the enzymes where they won't work. So you got to pay attention to the temperatures. All right. So, all right. What's next? All right. So that's the temperatures. There is a test that you can do for starches. You can use, and you can get it right at your pharmacy. It is iodine tincture, right? If you take a small sample of the water in your mash, after you give it enough time, right? And you put a couple drops of that in, if it goes and stays black, that means there's still starch present. So if there's still starch present, I mean, it ain't done converting yet. You might want to give it a little bit more time or double check your temperatures and all that good stuff. But if you do add a few drops of this, and I mean, they go in as a darker color, but if you kind of shake it in your, and I like to use a little white cup and an eyedropper, because the white, you can really see it real well. So you put the sample in there, a couple drops, and then you shake it, and it kind of goes back to your original color of the mash you put in there. That means there's no starch present, so that means you're done. That means you converted all the sugars that you have. All right. So what's next? I mean, that's a simple, and this stuff is relatively cheap. I know it is here in the United States, and you only use a few drops. I've had this bottle for a long time, and so it lasts a long time. Okay, so what's next? All right, so you're done now mashing in. It's not that big a deal. All right. So, once you know some of the important facts like temperatures and stuff, it don't take long. So you're done with mashing in. Now you have a couple of choices. So if you do the sparging method, and that's what I usually do. You see me use my mash tun with the basket and all in it, and once it's all done, I can sparge warm water or cool water. It's up to you. And try to flush those sugars off the grains that it's made into a fermentation vessel. All right, so that's one way of doing it. Okay, it works well for me. Another way doing it is a lot of people will take and they will mix all their grain into, say, a 30 gallon barrel or whatever your choice is, and you add hot, the correct temperature of water. So say you put your corn in there first, or your cooked corn, and then let it cool down to the temperatures you want, and regulate the temperature in a barrel, and just let the grains and all that do the conversion in your barrel. And then once it's to the right temperature, you just add your yeast and you're done. So it's a lot of different ways to do the same thing, and that's what's so fantastic about this hobby. Like I said before, I like the sparge method. Why? Well, it's probably because I came from the beer brewing world. That's what I started with. That's what I learned at first, and I like once I sparge over into my mash or into my fermenter, I like to leave all the stuff behind, because if we did it right, there ain't no sugars in it. You could get flavors out of it though, but if I did it right, I should have most of the sugars out of it anyway. And then once it ferments, particularly myself, I will siphon off and I like to leave the dead yeast, any particles and all that stuff behind, and that's fine. That works great for me. Or you can do the ferment on the grains, where you can just either bucket it off the top, or a lot of people use a little pond pump and just suck it down, and they'll leave a little bit in there, not enough to worry about. And that works great for them too. So I don't think there's no right or wrong. It's just different. All right. So I guess that's about it. But don't be afraid of the mashing in. It's one of the, to me, it's one of the fun things about the way this hobby is done. I just like it. You're making mashes, and I think you get a lot of different flavors. And one thing I did forget, if let's say you're making a corn mash, a straight only corn mash, no grains, you can use a high temperature enzyme or a powdered enzyme instead of the grain. But sometimes when I make a corn mash, I'll use some grain for that diastatic power that's in that grain to convert that sugar. All right. So there is ways of figuring that out. What else? I guess that's it. So I hope you got that much out of this. I still like these. I'm really enjoying these Distillers Corners. If there's something out there that you would like me to talk about, hey, just shoot me leave it in the comments, and I'll write them down, and I'll get to them. And hey, that's what it's all about. Everybody helping each other out. That's the great thing about this hobby, is we help each other out, and it works great. All right, so that's enough of me yakking. What do I got to say? Hey, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time here on Still Works and Bros. Cheers, everybody.